Hi, everybody. I am Andra Annette, and welcome to this new show, Echoes of Destiny. And I am with my co host, Nicky Cooper. So, we're both nurses, and we think this is a very important message that we want to put out. So, I've been a nurse for a long time. Nicky Cooper has been a nurse for a long time. Between us, I think we have 75 years in health, at least 75, 80 years. And there's a lot of dysregulation going on around us, and we feel like it impacts, the childhood development. We work with kids. I work with elder people as well. So do you, Nikki. You teach nurses as well. So we have a wide range of services that we do in the community, both professionally and personally. So we see a lot of dysregulation, a lot of people that are sort of separated from self. And this is having an impact on their emotional wellness, their spiritual wellness, and certainly their physical wellness. So we're going to have some of these conversations. That's what our show is going to be about. And if you see the shows and you see, that this is something that can help you, or you want more information on something we're talking about, we encourage you to reach out to us. So, Miss Nikki, how do you feel about what I just said?
Sounds right up my street.
It does. So, I mean, we've been out online, we work online, and that alone, I feel, has a lot of dysregulation. Like I minimize the time I spend online, and then I got to shut it down because there's so much busyness, and everybody's just here and here and here. And I find that the more we're here and here, the less time we're really centered and really going into ourselves and having that connection with ourselves. So, I help a lot of people with food issues, people that do eat emotionally, people that are overweight, people that are bulimic, that I have trouble with food. So, um, not having that connection to self and that self-awareness is going to impact us with our day-to-day lifestyles. And I don't think many people understand that being checked out of society and being busy all the time is really impacting them on a grand scale. So, what do you think?
Oh, I agree with you about not spending too much time online, Andra. I think, unfortunately, it's the way that the world has gone now, very much so digitally. What I'm seeing a lot of in the online space is a lot of functional freeze, a lot of doom scrolling, a lot of functional freeze. People just really quite disconnected from real life relationships and their relationship with themselves. And so they're just spending this whole time living out almost a fantasy, viewing everybody else's perfect lives online, etc. Searching for something. I'm not entirely sure what they're searching for. Maybe it's a disconnect from reality. Perhaps it's trying to find the missing parts of themselves that they feel that are missing. But I'm certainly seeing a lot of that. The other thing that I notice a lot of, Andrea, and that is that a lot of the stuff that people are putting out online is so far from reality. It's not funny. It's a version of themselves that is unrealistic. It's not real. And I think it's causing very unrealistic expectations in other people. And everyone seems to have their stuff together. I hear this in my work phenomenally with parents, well, how come everybody else seems to know what they're doing? Um, we're not living in this Kardashian lifestyle, but that seems to be a lot of what's being projected out there. The other thing that I've noticed a lot of is that a lot of the stuff that is put out online is almost a way of journaling and what's going on for them. And so often what they're doing is they're talking about a situation, particularly in the coaching world, a situation, something that needs to be healed, something that needs to be shifted. And I suspect that the content and the context of what they're actually putting out there is actually all for them. It's just a way of them getting it out of their own head. So that's something that I've noticed a lot online. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I see that too. I think people are trying to live that Kardashian life. I don't see it as reality. But, like the people who are always talking about money and stuff like that are people that generally don't have it. So,
Yeah.
you know, um, and you see a lot of flashy, screens and a lot of, yachts and all this stuff. And um, I think that's to get people to envy. Like, there's an old saying, if you want what I have, do as I do what I do. And I think they're trying to emulate that by these pictures and stuff like that. Like, if you want to succeed like me, this is how I did it, and buy my product and stuff like that. And I think it is really sending a very negative message to people. I did a post the other day that I was feeling like Frank Sinatra doing it my way because everybody was telling me what I needed, and none of it aligns with who I am as a person. You know, right before we went live, I told you about something new that I added to my business. So people really need to have multiple streams of income to be successful. If you start online as a coach, or even if you have years and years of professional practice, nothing's going to take right away, right? So that's why I built all the things around myself and monetize them. So all those things help support what I do in my business until that gets where I want it to get. It's still not where I want it to be. So, and I've been out here 4 years. It's nowhere near where I want it to be. So, but you can't just randomly pick things. Okay, I'll take this piece over here because it sounds like it's going to make a lot of money, and this thing over there. It has to be something that really aligns with your business so that you can offer more value to the people that you serve. Otherwise, you just look like a confused chipmunk, and nobody knows what you're doing. But I think that a lot of the things I'm seeing brings me back to Erickson and Freud and those stages of development, because those were drilled in my head that somewhere they didn't make it through some of those stages, and they didn't feel loving, belonging, or that they weren't getting basic needs met. And that's why they're still reaching. We're taught to, look outside of ourselves,
But you
that
can't live your life, I mean, I know you understand this, but you can't look at your worth as the amount of comments and likes and shares and all of those things. I mean, I know that they feed algorithms and they get people to be visible. And if you're doing that from a business perspective, but I think on a soul level, there's so many people that are very driven by that that's a indication of my worthwhile and that I'm enough, etc. And I find that very hard to comprehend.
well, I think they need that validation, and that goes back to something in the stages of development not being met, because they don't feel good about themselves. Because you know, I'm gonna be 59, I think, this year. I'm pretty close to 60. I'm not sure if it's 59. Um, but I think I always made myself 1 year older so I would be okay with it when I got there. So now I'm not really sure where I'm at. It could be 60 this year, who knows? So I think that as I got older, I cared less and less about what people think, because everything I had been taught up until a certain point was wrong. You need to get married and have children and go to college and, work hard to have a better life. Well, I had done all those things and I still wasn't happy you know so I had to start looking at myself and say, why am I not happy? What in me doesn't feel validated? What am I looking for that I keep searching outside of myself for? So I had to do that inner work, and it wasn't
Mm.
easy. but I did have to go back and forgive wrongs and go through that whole process because everything I was holding on to was causing sickness in my own body. And
Mm.
I didn't realize it at the time, but the more I healed emotionally, the more I healed physically and spiritually and all those other things. And that was just part of the process, part of that work. And I think that at my age now, I really don't care what people think. So if someone likes I mean, I really don't. At the end of the day, it's myself I have to look at in the mirror and say good
Mhm.
day or bad day, or, I love you for just as you are, whatever that is that I have that conversation with myself. So, maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I might have responded to a negative comment or something like that, or turns it around, like, but
So
and
what changes? I mean, it's sad that we have to almost go through a whole life before we get to that point. It seems like such a waste of time to have spent all these years, chasing those ideals and stuff and not being able to have that connection with yourself and not able to be less reactive, being really able to manage your emotions, etc. It seems like such a shame that we're not learning that right from the get-go. So we then have so much wisdom in our later years, but by then we've got the early indications of disease or dis-ease in our bodies and minds. So it just seems like it's all backwards. It's a shame that that's not what we're learning really young, so that we don't end up in that sort of sickened, diseased state. It's that's I think that's the missing part for me as a health professional and as someone that's in that helping and healing throughout, is that I can't understand why we've got children that are stressed in this day and age when we've got everything that we have and all of the abilities and the technologies and the knowledge that we have. Why have we got stressed children? It's just, yeah,
it,
it's
it
crazy.
goes back to those same things that they're missing something in something stage. They're not being accepted. It takes two parents to work. A lot of people are still raising children single family homes. So they're always at work, and then when they get home they're so tired, there's not that connection, or they maybe are not paying attention. They're present but not really present. And those kids feel like, why don't you have time for me? Or, aren't I good enough? Type of thing. But I think that we're giving our children a really bad message because we're still telling them to look outside of themselves. I just did a book, Awakening the Light, you know, um, daily affirmations for a better life. And in the book, I talk about how I was a kid, and I was taught all those things I told you, and that I woke up and I wasn't happy, and I did all those things for most of my life. I was a good egg, but
Mm.
I just wasn't happy. And none of those things that people wanted from me were what I wanted from me. And I had to decide between their acceptance and my happiness. And I chose my happiness. But I think that's a generational thing. I think that comes down from generations that we teach our children. You need this, you need a good job, you need to get married, you need to have children. That we place very strong ideals on them, and they're ours. They're our beliefs, and we
Mm.
place them on them and expect them to fall into line with them, rather than teach our children that it's more important for them to be happy. Mom, what should I do for a living? It doesn't matter, honey. Whatever you think is going to make you happy. You know, like if someone would have said to me, find something you love, and then it's never a job, it's never really like a job. Like um healthcare was something that I always loved. It just always made sense to me. So for me, I never felt like I was really working and I was having fun. So if someone told me just have fun and do something you love, that would have been a better message to give a child, instead of no, like, no, you can't write. That's not a real career. No, you're a woman, get out of engineering, or why are you doing tree surgery, or you know, all of those things. They're not feminine. They're not feminine enough. So you have all these people telling you what's right for you, and there's no, even though we're supposed to find our voice, it's that decisiveness in the way we're taught that is really leaving us unhappy and undecisive as we go through life, right? So I think we have to break some of those patterns and some of those pressures we're putting on our children, because um I don't understand why children are stressed either, but you have to, and I mean, I've never seen, I do a lot of community work. I work with a lot of children. The stress levels are through the roof, you know? Um, and a lot of it is that they have a lot of responsibilities that children really shouldn't have, where
Mm.
they're picking up family members from school and watching them until late at night till a parent comes home, or maybe cooking them dinner. Um, and they're still children too. So that was very normal in my family growing up. My two older sisters cared for us. And there was a difference of like 9 years in age because my mother had to work. But that's the norm in every family household where there's more than one sibling. One of those siblings is being the mini mom. And and they're not ready for that because they are in school and they have all those responsibilities. But even the way the school system is set up is, it's a rush. You wake up in the morning, you got to rush to get ready, rush to school, rush here, and then you got to rush home, do your homework, cook dinner. It shouldn't be like that. School
Mm.
shouldn't be even be meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning because the kids
No.
need those, they need those 8 hours sleep. School should really start at 12, maybe end at 4, and that's it, right? And they should be really instilling more values than scholastics, So even though scholastics are important, those values are more important.
I think, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I wonder how much emphasis needs to be on scholastic because I think if you find your, if you can, it's very difficult for young children because clearly they don't have the executive functioning to know that. But if you're driven by your passions and by your values and what really lights you up, then you're going to be more successful in that area. I don't know that everybody that learns a specific way of geometry or algebra, etc., is really going to use that in their entire lives. I don't remember any of it. I've got three teenage boys at the moment that are going through, certainly going through that degree of schooling, and they keep asking me questions. I have no idea what they're talking about. I don't recall that any of that. I've never used any of that. My basic maths
We
was
didn't.
used. I mean, I've been a nurse for 35 years. I've never, I mean, really, I mean, when we're working out micro calculations, not that I do because I haven't worked in ICU for many years, but um, you know, we're using technology to work out a lot of these things. We're not doing it on pen and paper and stuff like that. So I think that perhaps the scholastic stuff is seems to be for other people, not necessarily for the benefit of us. Maybe I'm turning into one of those unschooling philosoph
No, but
philosophers perhaps, but it just seems it just I think we're missing the biggest point is we're not looking after the emotional brain before we started on the executive functioning and the higher thinking brain. And I think that's what kids don't seem to be learning about budgeting. I mean, that would be really useful stuff in schooling, how to cope with stress for one thing, how to have relationships with ourselves and with other people, how to manage ourselves when, how to realize that most of what we're learning is when things aren't going well. So how to manage that and how to then step away from the pride and the shame and the embarrassment, etc., and actually go, well, okay, well, I'll do it differently next time. I think then to a certain degree, a lot of the way that we're conditioning children, which was the way that we were conditioned, which is probably why we ended up with so much stress in our lives, is it just seems to be not hitting the mark for me. I don't, maybe I'm changing the way I look at it all. But
No, I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying, and I don't know that executive functioning is really operating fully if they haven't obtained the ability to have that relationship with themselves, to love themselves. I don't think I think that we're kind of spoiling that part of their knowledge tree because we're teaching them
suppressing
in a
it,
yeah, but we're teaching them in an out of ordered sequence, you know. It's like learning to fly before you or learning to walk before you learn to crawl. So we're worried about that executive functioning and we don't have basic functioning in critical key skills like kindness and and that's a skill.
empathy, and
Kindness is a skill,
yeah.
but we're teaching them not really to feel that things that happen outside of them, they don't know how to deal with those emotions because we're not allowing them to deal with those emotions, to feel those emotions, to, even when children act out in anger, they should be allowed to express that anger in a good way, where they're not throwing things and stuff, but they have to throw something to find out it's not wrong. It's not right. Don't throw
Well,
that at a person.
the anger's signaling that something is not right. So there's a boundary that's been crossed, or I'm feeling
Yeah.
disrespected, or I'm feeling uncomfortable, or I'm feeling unsafe. And this is actually fear, but it's manifesting as anger. They don't seem to be doing, they're really not allowing people to feel, or children specifically. I mean, obviously I'm British. I've lived in New Zealand for, oh my God, it's coming up to 21 years now. But in certain parts of Europe, I think in Scandinavian countries, particularly, they don't start school till 7. Fantastic. I wish other countries would adopt that. It just seems like such a and parents are supported to be at home with their children to really, because parents are the first teachers, um it that seems to be a model I think that is helping. And I think if you look at the crime rates and the health rates in some of those countries, they're probably a lot better than a lot of other countries that are following more sort of, no, I don't know, school at 5, kindergarten, both
I
parents
think that's
working.
too young. I think they should really still be involved in creative play and things like that because that's when they learn to form friendships. They learn
Mm.
those spatial differences and boundaries and how to play with other people, and I think that goes a long way with the empathy and compassion as well. Do you want to
Sorry, my
answer your
son.
son?
Being at home with three kids. I'm just in the meeting, Harry. Sorry, I can't help you.
In a minute,
um,
Harry. In a minute.
in a minute, Harry.
um,
Working from home.
yeah, it's difficult when you work from home. But I think that we have to start moving in a direction where children are allowed to develop their own values systems early on. Not that we're pushing our values on our children. You know, what's right and what's wrong is different for everybody you're talking to, right? What based on how they were raised and their ethics and stuff like that. So I think it has a lot of people feeling less than. And another thing that does play into it is that financial aspect. So when we talk about health and wealth, we really are talking about the same thing because how you perceive things, whether it's financial, whether it's vocational, those all do have a critical role on how well you are, I guess. That's not the word I was looking for, but it does play a critical role on your perception of yourself. I think that's a better way of saying it. So if you
Well,
see your
it's a
friend,
resistance, isn't it? There's a resistance inside you that's
yeah,
fighting, and it's causing all of this inflammation. There's a resistance. You're not living your best self. There's going to be this sort of pushback and this constant resistance. I think
Yeah.
there's so much of what's going on is inflammation because we've got stress. It's such we're busy chasing the dream, chasing something, running away from what we're trying to run away from. There's just uh this continuous level of chronic stress, I think, in everybody, and it is causing a lot of resistance in our bodies. I mean, you look at so many of the diseases that we are struggling to. I mean, I work in a country where the health services supposedly are for free, they're publicly funded. Um, and yet we've got very high amounts of chronic disease. We really shouldn't need to have this amount of illness and disease that we're having to manage in later life, which is costing the country a huge amount of money. But actually, if we got it right from the get-go, people would be meeting their potential. They would be sort of following their natural trajectory that they were born with, that blank canvas. Um, there's just this chronic level of stress and disease that's just imploding, I think, worldwide. It's so sad to see.
It's really bad here in America too. And I think a lot of it is poor self-concept because a lot of what they're seeing online is that people are doing really well. And you and I both know, and I mean they have to know too in their heart amongst hearts, it's not actual. Those a lot of those people, I mean 0.0.1% of the people in the world actually make $1 million, and these people are claiming to do it in 1 or 2 months. So I mean, that's not real, but
Mm.
it makes them feel like, why not me? Why am I not good enough? Why can't that be my life? And it doesn't even have to be just a money thing. Some people have never had that close family, and they go online and they see families hugging and supportive, and they feel that resistance too because they didn't have it. And it's triggering a trauma response in them. They don't even know why it's triggering something back in them. It could have been something from 3 or 4 years ago or 60 years ago. But
Mm.
they're having a response to that because it's undealt with trauma. People are not doing that inner work because they're not connected to themselves. And they do suffer from low self-esteem. And it's clear, especially those people who gauge how well they are by a few likes on a post, right?
Yeah, and it's that continual sense of lack. But I think some of that is perception. In every situation that you have, there's always a positive. I think everything that ever happens to you, there's always got to be a positive intention. Otherwise, why would it happen? I mean, we're not living in a black hole. It's not really all that doom and gloom. So I think our negative bias tends to go to that sense of lack. But that is really a perception. I mean, every situation that you have, you are also gaining something. You may feel like you're losing something or lacking somewhere, and that takes a lot of energy to think that way all the time. Most people I find, I mean, having worked from cradle to grave for such a long time, they don't do the work that they need to do in life. They often do it as they're nearing the end of their life, and they really analyze it and have a good look at themselves. And you know, um, a lot of that is regret. What you have to remember is that it's rarely the people that you've worked with, your bosses, etc., that are coming to visit you in those last weeks of your life. And I don't think I've ever heard anyone say, I wish I'd earned more money here and studied more and wish I'd done all of those courses. They don't. It's not about that. Life shouldn't be about that. It
No,
just seems
they're
so
so go ahead. Go
it
ahead, I'm
just seems
sorry.
so topsy-turvy. It just seems so topsy-turvy. It does. Oh gosh, I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting old. I feel we've just gone society as a whole has just gone right off the um
Bonkers. They've
it does
gone bonkers.
it feels like we're really missing the mark here, and I don't know how to rein it back in. And I feel like I'm screaming but gagged at the same time, and I'm trying to get people to see this. It's almost like you need a ground zero and actually to rebuild it back up because not that I would wish us to have, terrible catastrophes and stuff like that, but we're just really missing the mark at what's really important. It's such a lot of time that we waste, seriously waste, worrying and doing, and we're human beings, not human doings. It seems to have just got really out of kilter, and I don't know how we get back there. I think that there is a certain degree of people that are really starting to reclaim their power, really do some work. There's a lot more to do, obviously. But there's a significant amount of people who are not, and they're just floundering. They're all over the show. A lot of what we're seeing online, Andrea, I don't know that that's coming from a real place of true, authentically wanting to help people. I would hope that it would be, but I don't get that feeling.
I don't
We've
either.
spoken before offline. We're both very intuitive people, and when someone is very, very much in that space. And I don't think it does seem to be all about that sort of self gain and and
Gratification, yeah.
and yeah, and
Yeah.
there's a huge amount of ego there. And I think,
Yeah.
when you're doing that and you're living in that world, that there's always got to be a counterbalance. That when you're up there, someone else is down there, and yeah. Well, gosh, we could
I
get really
hear
into
people telling people they're going to change their life in 30 days, and reset this and reset
good
that.
God,
And,
no.
so I'm doing a 30-day
Instant
challenge.
gratification.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm doing a 30-day challenge, and the challenge is to teach them what they need to keep doing so they can keep it, right? So I'll show them exactly how to get what they want. We'll do that for a month, and then it's time for you to fly, right? Because I will have started you on that journey and got you 20 pounds in, but you have to keep doing that. Otherwise, you don't get to keep it, right? So you have to buy into that, but
Well,
that's
willpower
like
only
me
gets
go,
you so far, isn't it, really? I mean, willpower's
yeah,
a
but
muscle.
you
You've got to look after it. It needs rest too. You have to
but that's
absolutely
part of even when I'm
change.
that's part of even when I'm teaching. So like the challenge has stress reduction as part of it, because if you're not managing your stress, then nothing you do are you going to keep. you know, um, Food swaps, all kinds of stuff, mindfulness. So all those key elements that we have to do, and they do have to do some kind of exercise, because
Mhm.
my girlfriend sells water, and we were just having this conversation the other day, and I do health. But we never tell people that there's only one way to do something, because just drinking water or just eating well is not going to give you that full picture. It's a combination of all those different things. But if you're only talking about one piece, if you only know one piece, then you're really not going to help anybody, right? So, I mean, I'm not a fitness pro, that's not what I choose to do. And I'm never going to get up on, TV every week and start instructing people on fitness. But I know enough about it to tell them what they need to do and proper body mechanics and all that stuff, right? And suggest things that they look into. Like, I have friends that do yoga and stuff like that. So everybody's going to want a different piece of that picture. And if it's not something that's in my wheel well, then I will refer that out, just like I do in nursing. If someone came to me and they needed a physical therapist, I would have to say, I'm sorry, that's not in my wheel well, but I know a great one down the hall, right? So, and there's a lot of people out there really claiming to have skills that they really don't, and they're hurting more people. And because there are so many people out there with the instant gratification and wanting that, unfortunately, they're going to be right back in the same place next year and the year after and the year after, because there's no quick results to happiness. There's no quick results to building a business or doing that inner work. True story. I met with someone, and she reached out to me and she asked for my help. And I said, I'm going to give you what you need, you know? this is where you need to start. And you know this. You just got to give yourself a little
Mhm.
more credit. I said, so I'm going to give you this. I said, but this over here, if this doesn't change, none of this changes. I said, because this conversation just keeps circling the drain. It's the same one that was there last year and the same. I said, you got to work through that. Otherwise, you're going to keep attracting the same people. You're going to keep being in the same situation. And you take all of these things out on you. So, until you figure out you, none of this stuff matters over here. You know what I mean? So,
It's a form of
um,
self-sabotage, isn't it, really?
yeah, it is. It is. And
Mm.
and and people want to people please so much that they get away from themselves. I was a big people pleaser for a long time, not anymore.
Yeah.
I was so busy taking care of everybody else that I lost sight of myself. I talk about that on my show
It's
because
the hero's journey, isn't it? It's the rescuer. The rescuing
yeah,
is
but
mm,
and then, when I decided to, and then I lost all those people in my family, and when it finally hit, it hit. And then I saw everything else around me coming down, and I said, wow, I haven't been present, have I? But it was a painful walk back. I didn't want to do it,
mm,
you know. Um, I could have stayed in that comfort zone, but that wasn't going to help the body I was living in, you know. Um, so I don't know.
and the thing and the truth is that this is not a temporary thing that people need to do. This is a everyday thing, an everyday practice. Has to be for the rest of your life to live this way, to live authentically, to live in your true self and live by your highest values and not looking for external validation, not chasing things that are unattainable, actually being grateful and present and appreciative for what you have, etc. This can't be just a I'll just do this for a short while and then everything's going to click into place. This has to be your new forever. This has to be
Yeah,
uh, a all in forever. Otherwise, it is just another fad that you have signed up for, another course or a workshop or a book that you've read that you've gone. You may take it, may plant a little seed, and um, you may recall it at some different points in your life. But this has to be a new way of being, a new way of doing forever. And the majority of people don't. I think most people probably would sit in that. Most people would probably sit in that space, particularly people that have been yo-yo dieters, etc., etc. They've sort of, um, yeah. It's a shame. It's such a multi-layered beast, life,
a
really, isn't
lot of
it?
that comes back to their self concepts and the emotional eating. I see people do it all the time. I mean, it starts in childhood and in high school. People are very catty and people judge you by your size, by everything. And I see kids today going through that, and I want to shake them and tell them, you don't know what you're
Mhm.
doing to your body. You're creating all this white fat. You're
I
killing your
know.
brown fat. You
Oh,
know,
and you're getting these really obscure attachments to such unhealthy things, but they give you a dopamine hit, and the more you do it, the your brain actually thinks, "Oh, this makes me feel better, so I just need to keep doing this." So I just keep doing it, and we're such complex beings, really, aren't we, Andra?
we
There's no
are.
one rule. Yeah, I it's the hippies were right.
Yeah, yes, they were. So we're gonna end the show. I wanted people to get a feel of who we were. We're gonna come in every week and we're gonna talk about real pressing issues, but we're also gonna start giving you some insights, some ideas of things that work for us, things that have worked with people that we've worked with. We've worked with a lot of patients over our lives, we talk about that immediate gratification and stuff like that. I can't tell you how many diabetics you tell them if you keep doing that, you're gonna lose a toe or a finger, or you have to learn to eat right. And um then they're in for to have that amputation, and sometimes it's 4 or 5 before they finally get it, or they just don't care. They say it's my life, I'm going to eat what I want to eat.
All about
But
choices.
yeah, we do have choices, but and so do you. So you do get to choose what you do for a living, what your vocation is, whether you're happy, whether you want to keep comparing yourself to other people, or just be happy as you are. Everybody in this world is different, and that's what makes this world so much better. We're all here to teach and one each other something and learn from one another and really grow as a community. And the more that we compare and we ostracize people for being who they are, the more division that we're creating. And I don't think I've ever seen this country more divided than I have now. So we'll be sharing more of our personal feelings and and our thoughts on what we think that we need to do as a community to really get back to health. And if no one's told you today you're special, you are. Um, just be grateful for who you are and what you have in this moment, and everything else gets better, right? Would you agree?
100%.
All right, guys, have a
100%.
good night, and thanks for watching Echoes of Destiny.